Welcome back from the break. After you have configured team phones services for your organization, you will need to enable voice services for users so that they can make and receive calls. The method to enable voice for users depend on whether you have configured Teams phone and will use calling plans, or whether you have configured direct routing and will enable that for users. Upon completion of this lesson, you should be able to enable users for Teams phone using calling plan or operator connect if it's configured for your tenant. Enable users for direct routing. Manage pre-user option for Teams phone. Let's get started now with module 4. So how do we enable users for Teams phone? After you have set up your organization configuration for Teams phone with calling plans, or configure a partnership with your provider using Operator Connect, you then need to enable users to make and receive PSTN phone calls. This ability allows you to selectively enable Teams phone services for only users who need the functionality, or gradually enable voice services as you train users or deploy devices. To enable Teams phone for users, we will need to perform the following tasks. Assign Teams phone licensing. Assign a Teams domestic or international calling plan license. Assign user dial plans. Assign numbers to users. Assign a verified emergency address location. And assign a calling policy to a user. To use Teams phone, you will first need to assign the following licenses to a user: Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365 Teams phone, optionally audio conferencing or audio conferencing pay per minute. You will also need to assign a calling plan license with included minutes or communication credits. Just a warning, after assigning license, you will need to wait before assigning numbers to user because of the latency between Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams. It can take up to 24 hours for a user to be assigned a calling plan after you assign a license. Assign a phone number and address location to user. After assigning licenses to user for Teams phone, you will then need to assign phone numbers and emergency location. In European countries or region, the emergency location is associated with the phone number when you get it from Microsoft 365 or Office 365, or when you transfer a phone number over to Microsoft 365 or Office 365. In the United States, the emergency location is associated with the phone number when it's assigned to the user. The emergency address can be changed if the user that is assigned to move to a new location. Next, we'll then assign calling policy and dial plan to a user. While you can assign a multitude of policy to Teams user, two important policies for voice are dial plan and calling policy. A dial plan is a named set of normalization rules that translate dial phone numbers by an individual user into an alternate format, typically E.164, for purpose of call authorization and voice routing. They describe how phone numbers expressed in various formats are translated to an alternate format. A calling policy controls the calling features that are available for the user. Next, we will talk about enable user for direct routing with Teams phone. Before you can enable direct routing for users, you will need to have it configured at the organization level. This will include configuring an on-premises session border controllers or use setting provided by a telephony provider that offers a direct routing service, followed by configuring voice routing, emergency calling, and if necessary, high availability functionality. After configuring your organization to support direct routing, You will then need to perform the following tasks to enable functionality for user. Assign required license for teams with direct routing. Enable a user for enterprise voice services. Assign a telephone number to a user. Enable voicemail for a user. Assign a voice routing policy to a user. To use direct routing, you will first need to assign the following license to a user: Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Teams Phone, and similar to calling plans or Operator Connect audio conferencing require an additional license. After you have assigned the correct license, the next step is to configure the user's online phone setting. You will typically enable Teams Phone functionality and assign a number available to you from your voice provider. As you enable Teams Phone for a user, voicemail will be automatically enabled at the same time. After configuring a phone number for the user and enabling the user for voicemail, you will then assign a voice routing policy to the user. This policy allows the user to dial out and receive calls by associating them with specific direct routing configuration. Besides those core features provided in Teams Phone, additional scenarios can be enabled, configured, and customized for each individual user, and that includes things like the audio conferencing, group pickup, forwarding, simultaneous ring, and delegation. Next, we will have a demo on how to configure and manage voice user. Console need to make changes to existing users who are enabled for Teams Voice and add Teams devices. Right now, let's manage a voice user. We will perform the day-to-day management task for Teams Voice user. In this task, we will sign into the Microsoft Teams Admin Center and make changes so that Isaiah colleague Kathy can pick up their call. In the left navigation menu, let's select User and Manage User. And we will find Isaiah. And then select the name to open the user property. So on the user property, let's select Voice. And under the call answering rule section, we'll pick up also allow group call pickup and select the manage call group. Then we'll select add people. We will add Kathy Jordan. Alright, and we'll select apply. So in the notification column, update the value from ring to banner. Alright, so let's just save it, and the changes are now applied, and the banner will show for calls directed to Isaiah on Kathy's Teams client, allowing them to answer in the event that Isaiah is not able to. Let's move on to configure call delegation. We will configure Alex Wilbur so that Kathy Jordan is a delegate of Alex Wilbur and is allowed to make calls on their behalf, but not receive call. So let's go to Manage User once again, and we'll find Alex, and then select the name to open the user property. On the user property page, select the Voice tab, and under the call answering rule, you will allow call delegation. And we'll select add people, and we'll find for Kathy. Then we'll select add to include them on the people list, then select apply. So in here, we can leave the permission value as make and receive call, and we'll switch the allow changing call setting radio button to off. Alright, so right now the changes are now active, and then the Alex Weber will make sure that the Kathy Jordan is a delegate of Alex Weber and is allowed to make calls on their behalf but not receive call. Next, we'll enable audio conferencing. So in this task, we will validate audio conferencing is enabled for Isaiah and change the default setting. So we will go to meeting and audio conferencing. select Add from audio conferencing policy, and we'll enter the name as no toll-free numbers for names, and the description as no toll-free numbers in meetings. And we'll turn this off. Alright, so and we'll save it. Alright, so we'll select the row with no toll-free number, and we'll assign user. And then we'll search for Isaiah, and we'll add, and then select apply. So select user and manage user. We will find Isaiah and select the name to open the user property. On the user property page, we will select the account tab. Alright, and under audio conferencing, select edit. So we'll select the toll number drop down and change it to some numbers that you assign. Okay, the particular number might not be available, so we can choose the other number as appropriate. So we just choose one, and we'll select apply. So we have successfully modified the audio conferencing setting for Isaiah. As you can see here, audio conferencing is on as well. And finally, we'll assign a dial out policy. In this task, we'll assign a new dial out policy to Megan Bowen to restrict her from making outbound calls. So we'll go to user, manage user. We'll find for Megan Bowen. Alright, so and then we'll select the name to open the user property. On the user property page, we'll select voice, and under outbound calling, we'll select don't allow, and then we'll confirm it. And so right now we are all done, and outbound calls from Megan Bowen has been restricted. Let's have a quick summary of what have we discussed in module 4. In module 4, you have learned how to enable voice services for users so that they can make and receive calls. You have learned how to enable voice services when using Teams phone with calling plans, and how to enable voice services for users when direct routing is configured. We will now take a 10-minute break. See everyone back here, then when we will start our last module in this course, module number 5.